This is a Hot Pie Media original.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp assesses your needs and matches you with your own licensed professional therapist, and you can start communicating with them in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not a self-help line. It's professional therapy done securely online. With a broad range of expertise, which might not be available in local markets, the services are available for clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and even send messages to your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, and you can schedule weekly online video or phone sessions, so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room again. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so that they make it easy and free to change therapists if needed. It's more affordable than traditional therapy, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit their website and read their testimonials. And visit BetterHelp.com/SSS. That's BetterHelp.com/SSS, the code for Stop Self-Sabotage, and join the over 1 million people who've taken charge of their mental health. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. So don't forget, the special offer for Stop Self-Sabotage listeners is to get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/SSS.
Welcome, Lisa Luckett, and I am so delighted to have you on. And you have written a wonderful book about a horrible experience. Tell us a little bit about your story, Lisa, please.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me today, Pat. This is really, truly wonderful. So my story is that we are now at the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and I am a widow from that event. My husband, Teddy, was working in the North Tower of the World Trade Center above the fire. And so began this journey that I have been on in this very unique way. In the strangest possible way, I was actually prepared to handle his death. And so that I had a very different experience of 9/11 because of that preparation. By 11 o'clock that morning, I was literally calm and clear and firmly planted back from the edge of the abyss. In fact, kind of the analogy would be I was a weeble. I wobbled, but I didn't fall down. And, so that kind of began this course of study for the last 20 years of how can we all benefit from looking at things in a different way and from shifting our perspective instead of being in that victim mode of why is this happening to me, instead shifting to say, why is this happening for me? Why am I being shown this?
That.
What am I supposed to learn here?
What is this for me? I love that. All right. So you talk about being prepared. Tell us a little bit about that. How were you prepared?
That's very bizarrely. And again, so kind of for the audience, it's really about, in my bigger message would be that life is always preparing you for life. And it's not usually the good stuff. It's the hard stuff.
Darn.
I know. Geez. But the truth be told that my husband, Teddy, was working in the World Trade Center. He worked for Cantor Fitzgerald, which was the big company at the top that lost 658 people in one swoop. They were in that building for many, many years. But in 1993, in the first attack on the World Trade Centers, he walked down those 105 floors for 4.5 hours. And when he got home, he was covered in so much soot. I remember he walked through the door and you could smell the fire. It filled the apartment. It's so toxic. So, and I sat like you would on the toilet, and he was showering and telling me about his day, and the water ran black for like 5 minutes. He was covered and you wouldn't really see it, right? He was kind of smudged. Yeah. Well, so that preparation, so I got really angry about it. About 6 months later, I flipped out at a dinner party and couldn't believe people were not angry about this terrorism, and nobody cared. People just brushed it under the rug. But fast forward, 8 years later, and here it happens, and I never get angry again because I'd already processed the fact that those were two enormous targets, and we went back in. Mm-hmm. So that was one piece. And that knowledge of the smoke piece was really important because there was no smoke outside of the buildings in that first attack. It was a clear blue day.
Right.
So when I turned the TV on 9/11, I knew he was gone. There's just no way he was going to survive that thick, black, oily smoke. It was just huge. I mean, we could all see it. So that was the first preparation. That was my first experience of terrorism of the World Trade Centers. Mm-hmm. The second piece, which is pretty twisted, is that my mother-in-law, who was not the nicest lady to herself or me, told me he was going to die of a heart attack every time I saw her for the years we were married.
Jeez.
Well, and the reason being, okay, he had high cholesterol naturally. We were 40. I had just turned 41. He was really stressed at this Wall Street job. We had just had another baby. I had a 4-month-old at 41. And he was a walking heart attack. Mm-hmm. So what it did was I ran his death through my mind, literally, I would say hundreds of times, to the point I would be laying at night weeping, with the fear and the worry, until I just couldn't torture myself anymore.
Sure.
And we decided to buy as much life insurance as we could afford, that I already knew where all the important documents were, and to make sure we went to bed well every night, having righted any wrongs, and let it go. Not knowing that all of that worry, that we as humans have such vivid, brilliant imaginations, we can actually get ourselves just as worked up at the idea of an event.
Oh, of course. We create it. Yeah. Yeah. We have all the emotional flooding and experience of it. So horribly, paradoxically, you had lived his death for many years. I had
lived his death. So when it actually happened, I was fine because I was prepared.
Yeah.
And I was a nursing mother of a 4-month-old. I had 3 little kids, 7, 4, and 4 months. And the other piece is that nature, God, the universe, however you want to express it, is there. And I believe that actually trauma, since we're kind of talking about mostly trauma, the trauma is really an opener. And it's being an opener, we could also see it as an opportunity.
We could.
I want to be really positive about it.
Yeah.
But it's an opener, and that in fact, pain, which I've thought about for many years, if nature is in perfect balance, if we agree with that, then pain is natural in nature. It must have a purpose. And maybe that purpose is the rocket fuel we need to learn that we want that pain to stop. So
yes,
I literally blew through this experience. I was blown wide open. And what came in? I was flooded, honestly, with what ended up being a higher power. I mean, I didn't know it then, but it's kind of the story is, by 11 o'clock that morning, here I stood and I was watching my house full of people, my dear friends, neighbors, everybody just beyond tears, just so incredibly shocked and horrified and all needing to help me. And I couldn't really get my head around my husband's death. But I could definitely get my head around the fact that I was an American and my country had just been attacked and I wanted to help them too. So it was this mutual need to help. And I realized in that moment, there was nothing anybody could do to help me, but the only thing I could do to serve them was to actually allow them to help me.
Yes.
Which was the most bitter pill ever.
Yes.
As we have discussed.
Well, but let's go back there for a second. It's a bitter pill because you saw yourself as a strong woman, able to handle anything, and not really wanting these people with their casseroles or their this or their that, or all well-meaning,
right?
Of course.
Right.
But so what happened there for you, Lisa? I mean, because your reaction was not, oh my gosh, thank you so much. It was some level of resistance to it.
Well, for initially, so it's all an internal conversation, right? I'm standing there.
Yeah.
I literally feel like these hands behind my back. And I'm like, whoa, like propping me up. And I'm like, whoa, Teddy is like, is that you? Like, what the heck? And in this time, as I'm going, I don't want anybody's help. I can do all this. I'm a woman of the 60s, 70s, 80s. This is shameful if I take help. Oh my gosh, I'm a failure. And all the things we say to ourselves, because women were never allowed to ask for help, is this voice that came through and it literally said this, Lisa, let them help you. Oh, full on voice. I didn't know anything about that stuff then, but what happened was I surrendered, Pat, and I let go of my control. And that control that we all think we have that doesn't really exist. That control.
Yes.
So that in that moment, though, this is the most amazing part. I was overwhelmed with the sensations of gratitude and humility and grace and this feeling of love that I have never, ever lost. This unbelievable buoying, however you say it, this literally being buoyant from this overwhelming sense of grace.
And you literally felt the hands on your back and you heard a voice saying, let them help you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hypothesize that was your husband?
I think so. I mean, I'm going to say yes, because here's what goes with the whole spirituality, enlightenment world is it's based on faith.
Yes.
And what is faith? That is that, believing that in which we cannot prove or see.
Right.
And I have absolute faith that I have been guided since the second I literally came to, if you will, on the couch, minutes after watching the second plane hit the second tower with my kids in my arms, my 4-year-old and my 4-month-old, like staggering, whatever I did. My son said I was stomping my feet. I don't even remember that. I'm screaming my husband's name, but I literally came kind of around and went, wait a minute. Okay. You've got to function. You have to get these kids through this. They are all that matters. So everything got really simple. Like it was just about my kids.
Yeah. 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 But let's go back to let them help you. So when you felt that, what did you do? What was your next response? I
surrendered. And in surrendering, it's an emotion, this is, I didn't get down on my knees or anything, but I just I let go. And that's, we talk about letting go and in the bigger picture and we talk about control and things like that. We've touched on this. We really control nothing. And it's in the letting go that's that humility, right? That grace that we aren't in control and we can just allow things to happen and unfold naturally as they're meant to.
Yes.
And it softened me. It just softened everything. All I could see was beauty in that. That's the second piece of this is I'm a pretty positive person by nature. I'm a half full versus a half empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I could literally not stop seeing the beauty in everything. Like the kindness, it was literally palpable. Almost like there was an aura around the fact that we had that all of this love that I was seeing the incredible grace of humanity of the best of my friends in this traumatic moment. And later to understand that it is the magnanimous aspect of being human. When we are in a pinch, we show up.
We do. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, like you said, you surrendered and that surrendering has never stopped. I mean, are you still feeling it 20 years later?
I still feel it 20. It's a practice, I'm not saying, because then reality comes back and life shows up and
sure,
but the idea that the practice being that, when we think we're in control and when we're frustrated, when things happen to us, back to that, it all plays together.
Yeah.
So instead of being upset about something happening and getting really angry, and you're allowed to be angry, by the way, but you just can't stay there.
Right.
Right. And it's allowed, but everything we were talking earlier, it just still has to process in its own time. And that's part of the control. Like, why am I feeling like that? And we beat ourselves up. Right. Yeah. It's part of, that's the flip side also of, especially as women, we can't allow ourselves to be helped. Like no one wants to ask for help still. I'm not saying it's easy, and it was never easy for me, but I knew it was right.
Yes.
Because it became this understanding of the people around me were projecting themselves into my situation. It could have been their husbands.
Yes.
It could have been their wives.
Yes.
And in that projection, they needed to feed their souls. They needed to give to me to make themselves feel better.
Yeah. You were talking about,
it really wasn't about me.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about soul food. And I love that. It really is food for the soul and soul food. And so they show up with what they can give, which they know is in no way, going to make up for it, but they can do something. And they need to, because they need to do it for themselves and probably for you too. I mean, there's an element of that. Yeah.
For sure. It was a subconscious, but it was pretty early on when I kind of figured that out. The other thing in listening and talking about trauma is that people are going to help you the way they want to help you, not necessarily the way you need to be helped. So it's not like I had people taking my kids from me and letting me take a nap. That wasn't really happening. I really could have used that. And the other side of that is that, and I'd be curious to know what your experience is with this. The people I thought were going to be there were not.
Interesting.
And unexpected people, tertiary people were the ones that showed up and ended up saving me.
Yeah.
So all of that.
I have heard that a number of times, and it's perplexing because you think these are my dearest friends, and they would show up, I would show up for them, and then somehow they can't come to the hospital, or they can't, they always have something to do or something, and the truth is they're not there. And so you have a double loss. You have the loss of your husband, and then the loss of your expectation of what these people would have been for you. But as you said, the grace is that other people step up. So, and in accepting that, in those, in your book, let's talk about the book. Give us the book title. We want people to get the book. Come on.
Okay. So the book is titled aptly, "The Light in 9/11, Shocked by Kindness, Healed by Love."
I love that.
On the heels of that, of your point that, people, the ones who show up and vice versa, I was really healed by the kindness of strangers.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And the energetic love that was being showered on myself, on my kids, on all the 9/11 families, that we literally have never, ever, ever been forgotten. I mean, if we treated each other as 9/11 families are treated, we would have no problems in the world.
Nice
Well, and
to
the
hear.
reason, right. Well, think about it. You guys know what happened to me.
Yeah.
And how rarely do we know what people are really struggling with.
Right. Well, and you had a built-in group of people, 658 families from Cantor Fitzgerald, that it all happened to them as well. So, I mean,
Right.
you had a built-in support group.
Well, they became a support. Cantor was a whole story unto itself. But yes, I mean, it was more though, we were all recipients and variations on receiving, right? And it was coming from every possible angle. I mean, worldwide, money, attention, gifts, cards. I mean, from strangers. I got quilts and stuffed animals and things that people made from Texas, from Mississippi, from all over the world. I mean, thousands of cards, literally thousands. Wow. So, and it's just an insane amount of attention, which again is a lot to handle. And yes. I was so grateful. And a lot of people shut their doors, and what I realized, and that's again, I think why my experience was unique, is I recognized that people needed to be able to see me. They needed to be able to touch me, to see my kids, to know that if it was to happen to them, they too would be okay. So instead of shutting people out, which would be the normal thing to do for a normal person, would be to close your door and take a break. Yeah. I rallied in this love. I literally was pulled into this better place. I was better for having lived it almost immediately. It made me a better person.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I just think it's just such an amazing story. But you brought up a good point in that as well. And that is that people give to you in the way they would want to be given to. And yes. It may not be the way you wanted. And this comes down to our inability to ask. So to say to someone, hey, I thank you for the broccoli casserole, but could you watch my kid for 10 minutes so I can take a shower? I mean, yes. But it's that duality we have to learn to be grateful, but to also be proactive in what we need. It isn't just receiving. It's asking as well. And there's a push-pull with that, I think, for most of us.
Yeah, well, we're in America, we are unwriting 400 years of training and all the European and other cultural training that came before that. I mean, receiving is very difficult. And as I say, it wasn't something I enjoyed really ever. But if you're in a situation like this, and you can look at it in the sense that you're helping other people when you allow them to give to you, that if you can do it for them, it makes it a less bitter pill.
Yes, of course. So, okay. In your book, you describe how society reacted in the days, weeks, months, and years after the attacks. How do you think that has played out to where we are today?
Well, the analogy that I have, which I got really early in the first few weeks, was two kind of visuals came to mind. The first being that it's not very pretty, but a chicken with its head cut off. Like we were frantically darting and jerking in frenetic circles. No one knew what to do.
Right.
And the second being a stagecoach barreling down a mountainside out of control because the driver had let go of the reins. We literally went, oh my gosh. And we threw our arms up. When those buildings fell in, Technicolor, incredible drama, right? You could never create that in Hollywood.
No.
That we all had time to tune in and see it in real time with our own eyes in our own living rooms.
Yeah.
You will never create something like that. We'll never be that naive again, right? What happened, in my opinion, is we started to spin. In that spin, we were pushed out in like an emotional centrifugal force, so that wherever we were broken, we broke further. So that played out in my families. Both families were dysfunctional to begin with, and they were blown apart by 9/11, never to recover. Never to recover. So alcoholism, drug addiction, marital, extramarital affairs, shopping. No surprise 2008 would happen and we'd have given away all this money, all of these subprime mortgages where people didn't know really be able to afford, because it was just a feeding frenzy of let's feel better and make money and make things happen without thinking. So we can attribute, if we want to look at this, again, a shift in perspective, how can we look at 9/11 in different ways so that we can learn from it and shift out of this victimization mode and see where we are as a result? And my opinion now, 20 years later, post-COVID, which is fascinating, is if you look at these years, bookended by two global collective traumas that changed the world forever.
Yes.
One, a hammer, a smashing immediate hammer, the other, a slow building flood that we couldn't get away from, right?
Yes.
When we dropped the reins in 9/11, maybe COVID was Mother Nature saying, whoa, let's pull back and slow down. Everybody needs a timeout. They need a snack and a nap, and we need to get up and figure this stuff out. So, the idea that we have been literally frenetically spinning because we didn't have leadership. There was no leader. Our country is very young. We are very inexperienced. We do not have wisdom from experiential learning. And until we spin and we see 9/11, until the reparations that are being made in our country right now for the Native Americans, for the African Americans, even these ideas to start to make things right, to say that we were wrong. Imagine that, we just didn't mean to do it.
Yeah.
And it ended up, but we take responsibility. So the self-awareness and the emotional intelligence that comes with learning from our experience instead of blaming, instead of staying in that frozen place of
they did it
on the edge of the abyss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So as you said, instead of it happened to us, it happened for us. I love that. And the for us then is open to a lot of interpretation about what that for us is. But what is your secret to seeing the silver lining in what happened, as you say, in gaining post-traumatic growth? PTG. I love that. PTG.
Yeah, it's not mine. That is something that's popped up in the culture in the last couple of years. And, we hear, of course, PTSD all the time.
Yeah.
Well, post-traumatic growth is the opportunity, is when you've had a chance to look at your experience. And when you're through it, more or less, right? We're always evolving, and we're always going to circle back on these experiences. And if we're in a healthy mindset, right, we're going to see it in new and different ways. But the idea being the litmus test in my life would be, am I better for having lived it? And I have a short story about 8 years later, in 2009, I had a breast cancer diagnosis. And after the initial shock of the word cancer, when I came to, a few hours later, I went, wait a minute, this is a test. Have I learned a skill set for trauma management? The answer is yeah. Because it's just a process, like everything. It's just, that's where, again, our culture, we have not had time to really nurture our emotional intelligence. We've spent so much time on academics. We've spent so much time on physical fitness. We've spent no time on emotional health or emotional knowledge or well-being. So that three-legged stool of balance, 9/11 happened and we tipped over. But we have the opportunity right now, 20 years later, when we've maximized the other two to a point where you can't get any bigger, when Olympians and athletes are having to take steroids to compete, and kids who are getting 1600s and 4.0s and being tutored for better A's are not getting into the colleges of their choices. Have we not maximized those things? But we've done nothing. It's like a new frontier. And it's really exciting. And if the American intellect can get its head around, no pun intended, the innovation is our gross domestic product. It's our biggest thing. We are innovators. We think it up and everybody else builds it, right? What if we were to innovate emotional intelligence? What if we decided to put our time and our effort in that direction and bring that balance back up?
You're singing my song. You are singing my song. I love that.
That's why we're friends.
That's why we're friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody earlier today and they were talking about schools. And I said, why in the world do we not have required personal development, communication skills, learning about dysfunctional families in schools? I mean, I haven't used algebra, I really haven't. But
nope.
I could have learned a lot about dysfunctional families, and I could have learned a lot about, being able to take care of myself and to learn my voice and be able to speak my truth. So, to your point, we have to do that. We just have to now more than ever, truly.
Right. And we had talked about your audience having some nice younger people in it, millennials, Gen Zers. And that's where my heart lies right now, because I'm really I don't have time to convince anybody of anything. But what I know about the younger people, what I know about people born after 1990, the late 80s, they're born actually into a different energy, and they're just different humans. They're more sensitive. They've grown up in a different world post 9/11. They've grown up in technology. So we as adults really can't answer their questions because they can get whatever they need from Google. So how do we shift around to become useful humans to the younger culture, part of the culture? And that is to be that wise counsel, to be that quiet voice of reason. But to the kids, I say this: we can delineate to the month a 20-year window of collective trauma, where we were literally being battered back and forth between after 9/11, we had hurricanes, we had tornadoes, fires, floods, big things, right? All the shootings. I mean, literally almost countless shootings.
Countless. Yeah.
So we've not been able to come up for air. So maybe now with COVID, it's slowed enough down, right? I mean, there's certainly unrest going on, but that's everything coming to the surface to be healed, to be seen, to be looked at, to be heard, seen, acknowledged, right? That's what ultimately heals, Pat. You know that better than anyone. It's being seen and heard and validated that you're not crazy. Yes. That what you think is real and what you feel is right.
Yeah.
For you.
For you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. And if that is what, processes out to come out of COVID, then, what a great gift, I think it will. I think we've really identified that the education needs to be very, very much looked at, the curriculum. And like you said, I think we should have emotional intelligence be the fifth category: history, English, science, math, and emotional intelligence. Yeah, I agree.
To be a mandatory lane.
Absolutely.
Conflict resolution. We need to study world religions more than we need to study social things. Make it real, make it tangible and current, based on history, right? So that we can understand how it's repeating. But mostly just to go into it with a different mindset of collaboration.
Yeah.
And not domination.
Exactly. Well, and it's so fascinating to, I have a grandson, and he was visiting me, and I called his mother. I said, I'm doing something wrong. He won't talk. She said, no, it's fine. He just doesn't talk. She said, and he won't talk. And then he'll come in and he'll want to talk for an hour. And so one night he came into the bedroom and he sat down on my bed. He goes, okay, Nana, let's talk about religion. And then we went on for an hour, and I thought, this is very interesting how this kind of, younger brain processes things. And he really wanted to know. And I can't remember being 17 and asking about world religions. I mean, I don't think I was thinking about cheerleading.
Right. And I was thinking about where's the next party.
Yeah. So, where's the next boyfriend? Yeah.
Right. But the kids of today, we have to remember something that's really important. And that is, in one generation, we flipped. So I'm 60. My kids are in their 20s. We flipped from being a parenting model of children were to be seen and not heard in an adult world to my husband, Teddy, saying of my daughter, Jen, when she was 2, oh my gosh, we're just working at the castle for the princess. We started waiting on our kids. And in that one, because we must have recognized somewhere in there that we didn't get what we needed. Right. So, but now children today, we plant them in the ground, we water them, feed them, and give them sun, and we let them grow into who they are instead of who we want them to be.
Yeah.
We don't make them, they don't have to be an extension of us for us to love them.
Yes.
So maybe we finally conquered, well, I don't know if conquered's a word, but we've come much closer to true unconditional love of our children.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be
that's
nice?
got to get people stepping off on a better foot just to start with.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Lisa. Okay, so how does the shifting perspective that you've gained and your self-awareness help you it's helped you to grow, and how does it help you to become wiser now? Looking back 20 years, you've had 20 years for this to sift and to process and for you, what are some tips that maybe you could give to people to help them with trauma? And resilience,
it's, we've mentioned this a little bit about trauma and resilience. It is about letting go of control. And as hard as that can be, because that pain really, it does hurt. But unfortunately, we have to ride the wave. And knowing that, what I was always amazed by is I never got that crashing tidal wave of pain that I had always anticipated watching the people that I had known go through grief, because they were actually ultimately pretty unhealthy. And, but it came in small doses, and it comes over time, and it lessens, and it's unexpected. Like anyone who's been through grief knows that it's very unique to each person, and it's not something you can plan for. You just have to ride it when it comes, but it will eventually dissipate. And that love to me is a connector. So if I get weepy over Ted 20 years later, I'm grateful because I've processed this so much. But, the truth be told, and I really need to tell this story because it's the critical point. Within a couple of weeks after 9/11, you can tell I'm strong. I'm a warrior spirit. And I felt this power, this kind of mission building from within me. And it wasn't a negative. It wasn't an angry warrior. It was really a warrior of love, and determined that there was no way I was going to let Teddy and all the others die in vain. Like that was just not going to happen on my watch, that I would spend my life trying to make something good come from 9/11. Or the terrorists were going to win. And that wasn't okay. And I didn't even know what that meant. So I didn't even know about intentions then. But what I did was I was setting the intention of my life. And what I did was I took my life to the analyst's couch to figure out the why of everything, which is what the book is about. Because it's the journey of literally pulling the pieces apart, not to blame anyone, not to point fingers and have anger. It's about figuring out the why. What's underneath it? Why? Why am I having these repetitive experiences? What happened in my childhood? What happened to the people? What were those traumatic scenarios that caused me to be who I am and triggered the way I am? Yes. And until we know ourselves, it doesn't really answer the trauma question, but it does answer kind of the age-old question of why are we here? Yeah. And I think we're here to struggle, because it's within the struggle where the wisdom is. It's where that's where we can garner the growth, and that post-traumatic growth, that PTG comes from, what's it, silver linings. All of it comes from this shifting perspective and not knowing everything. So when I introduce myself to someone now, and I should have at the beginning of this, say, Pat, it's really nice to see you. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a recovering know-it-all. Because that's our culture. We are a culture of know-it-alls. And the first thing you can do is go, you know what? I have no idea what I'm doing here. And I'm gonna figure it out. So
I love that. I'm a recovering know-it-all. I'm not sure I'm ready to say it, but I certainly believe it. I certainly think that's probably true.
Some of us are less obvious than others, but but the truth is, it's that humility is the point. Yeah. It's that opportunity to take responsibility for our actions.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't intentionally. I just said this to someone the other day. Nobody goes out in their day and says, I'm going to be mediocre today.
No.
We're all doing our best in that moment. Yeah. Whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can only know looking back what it meant. And it's just taking responsibility to help the relationships. And that's what that vulnerability, which is now so much in our culture, right? It is a superpower, and self-awareness is a superpower of the future. And it's in the strength and that vulnerability that is the richness of your growth in your relationships, that you let down that guard and you let those people see you in this way. And there's so much love exchanged in that moment that is only good.
Yeah, of course. And your book, I hope it's going to be coming out again or re-release. It's out. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell everybody where they can get it. Amazon.
So it's on Amazon. You can go to my website, lisaluckett.com. It's an author website. It just gives you a little bio and the first chapter and stuff. But Lisa Luckett is Luckett. But the synopsis of the book would be this. While it's founded in 9/11, it's really about healing from trauma, any trauma. So to your point of our show today.
Yes.
It's about choosing, operative word being choosing, which means not staying in that victim place, but choosing to see the silver linings or the light in your situation. And that doesn't mean it's going to be in the same size. Like if you lose someone you love, the idea that the kindness of strangers that are coming in to support you, it's not in the same balance, but that kindness keeps you from tipping over into the abyss.
Yes.
And loss, complete loss. And ultimately the kindness of strangers, because people show up. It is fantastic. It's amazing to me. And it is available to all of us. And that's what we don't imagine when we're looking at a trauma. We can only see the negative, the cancer diagnosis, the sick child, the death of a spouse. We never imagine what's going to flank us, which is in the form of the kindness of strangers.
Yeah. Or a new love or a new book or a dedication to self-awareness and spirituality like you've had. I mean, there are gifts always.
Many gifts. Yeah. It's really, honestly, trauma is a catalyst. That's really its function.
Yeah.
It's a catalyst for growth.
Yeah.
And it's whether, I'm not saying it's easy, again, backing about the thought, I'm not saying it's easy. And it's over a course of time.
Yes.
And that's part of our young adolescent mindset culture is that we want everything yesterday. We want to know it now. We want to fix it now. Well, that just isn't how it works.
No, it's not. And anybody who's had a major loss knows that. Yeah. They know it inside themselves, whether whatever they want it to be, they know it does not happen immediately. Just there's no way.
Much as we would like it to. Much as great as that would be.
Yeah, as much as magic fairy dust you can spin on it. It doesn't. Well, absolutely. Lisa, tell us one more time the name of your book, just so I want everyone to hear it.
Very nice. The Light in 9/11, Shocked by Kindness, Healed by Love. And it's on Amazon. It's $10.99. The ebook is $1.99. I just want people to be able to have it. It's not about making money. This is the culmination, and I'll leave you with this. At this 20-year mark, this is the culmination of setting that intention. And so the book, anytime I spend, I've never made money with any of what I've done. It's all giving back as part of figuring out the why of everything, because it is actually here. It's actually available to us.
And the why? What why have you figured out?
While I'm here to know that my why is that we are here to struggle, that life is happening for us, not to us, that the life is our classroom and the struggles are the lessons, that we're not actually here to be happy. We're here to struggle in a contrasted environment. We're here to have opposition and contrast and duality so that we can learn and grow through that experience. If it was all only good, we wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Happiness comes in between all of that growth. That growth, I think you can, I'm sure, completely relate to this. There is nothing more satisfying than figuring it out.
For sure. And there's also, happiness is not a consistent experience. It's an event that we go in and out of, and that's life. People say, well, I just want my child to be happy. I said, well, then, put them in some semi-frozen state, and that's it. I mean, come on. Right. That's not life. We live, we go up, we go down. It is day and night. It is trauma and delight. And it's all a big mixture out there. And it's our job, as you've so beautifully said, to choose the good in it and to see that and to embrace that and surrender to it, even when we're in resistance to it. So
absolutely right, and lower those expectations.
Lisa, my expectations of you have been totally met. They have been high and they have been met. Thank you, dear.
Well, you're a delight.
Thank you,
my
dear.
pleasure. Thank you
Lisa.
for having me, Pat. And best wishes to everyone out there.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find more episodes and all of our other Hot Pie Media originals baked fresh daily at our home online at hotpiemedia.com, the Hot Pie Media YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts.